Have you ever wondered what it takes to build a truly great business? Well, what if the secret isn't starting from scratch, but saving a company that's on the brink of collapse? Today, we're diving into the high-stakes world of the corporate rescue mission. This is the art of turning failure into a massive success story. I know it sounds completely backward, right? Why would you buy a broken business? But here's the thing. What if the biggest opportunities aren't in those shiny new startups, but in fantastic companies that have just lost their way? That's the big question we're tackling today.
So, to really get this, we need to start thinking like a special kind of expert. Think of us as business doctors. And our very first job is to correctly identify the patient.
So, what are we really talking about when we say distressed asset? Well, picture a company that's really on the ropes. It could be drowning in debt, maybe its management is a mess, or it's just struggling. But here's the key. Because of all that trouble, it's selling for cheap. Way cheaper than what its brand, its tech, and all that stuff is actually worth.
You know, this really isn't about buying a pile of rubble. It's so much more like being a master house flipper. You're not looking for the teardown. You're looking for that beautiful, historic home with a solid foundation. The one everyone else ignores because the roof is leaking or the paint is peeling. The potential is still there. You just have to see it.
And this brings us to what is maybe the most critical distinction of all, the difference between a business that's broke and one that's broken. A broke business has problems you can solve, like a messy balance sheet. But a broken business, that has a fatal flaw, like nobody actually wants its product. Investors are hunting for the first kind and running for the hills from the second.
Okay, so you've got your business doctor coat on. How do you actually diagnose the patient? How do you tell if you've got a hidden gem on your hands or just a lost cause? This is all about the diagnosis. This really is the million-dollar, or let's be honest, often billion-dollar question. What are those telltale signs? What are the symptoms of a great company that's just hit a rough patch? What do the pros actually look for?
This chart is basically the investor's playbook. On the left, you've got the good bones. These are the things you can't just create out of thin air. We're talking about a brand that everyone recognizes, a super loyal customer base, or some really valuable patents. Then, on the right, you've got the solvable problems. This is the stuff that with the right team and enough cash, you can actually fix. Too much debt? You can restructure it. Bad management? You can replace them. The absolute magic happens when you find a company that's loaded with stuff from the left column and has a list of problems on the right that you know exactly how to solve.
All right, so the diagnosis is in and the patient is salvageable. Now the real work begins. It's time for surgery. This is the turnaround, and it demands a really clear, super aggressive plan of action.
To make this all feel a bit more real, let's invent a company. Let's call them Galaxy Gadgets. Now, everybody loves their products. They're innovative, they're cool. The problem, they borrowed way too much money to expand too fast, and now they're just drowning. Galaxy Gadgets is our perfect patient.
So the treatment plan is almost always a three-step process. First, you have to act like an ER doctor and just stop the bleeding. That means cutting costs immediately, selling off things like the corporate jet, whatever it takes to stabilize the patient. Second comes the major surgery. You renegotiate all that debt and make the whole operation more efficient. And finally, step 3 is recovery. You get Galaxy Gadgets to forget all the distractions and get back to doing what made them great, designing those incredible gadgets.
And there is absolutely no time to waste. This quote just captures the mindset perfectly. If you hesitate, the company could die on the operating table. Decisions have to be made fast, they have to be decisive, all to pull that company back from the edge.
So, after all that intense, stressful work, what's the prognosis? Well, this is where the stakes become crystal clear. It's either going to be a spectacular success or a total, complete failure. There's not a lot of middle ground.
Think of it like this. You place your bet, that's your initial investment. Now, if the turnaround fails, you could lose every single penny. But if you pull it off, the reward can be just astronomical. The potential upside is so much bigger than your potential downside.
So imagine you scrape together $50 million to save Galaxy Gadgets. If you get it wrong, that entire $50 million could just vanish. Poof! It's gone. But what if you succeed? What if you get Galaxy Gadgets healthy and focused again? That $50 million bet could turn into $400 million, or even more. That massive potential payoff is exactly what makes this incredibly risky game worth playing.
Now, this is more than just a cool story about high-stakes finance. The impact of these corporate rescues goes way beyond Wall Street.
So let's zoom out for a second and look at the big picture.
You see, when one of these turnarounds actually works, it's not just the investors who win. Thousands of people get to keep their jobs. A valuable brand that maybe we all know and love gets saved from disappearing forever. It forces the whole economy to get a bit more efficient, and it gives a really good idea, a great product, a second chance to succeed.
So when you get right down to it, this whole process is kind of like a form of economic recycling. It takes these struggling companies that still have good bones, and it breathes new life into them. And that makes the entire economy stronger and more dynamic for all of us.
So I'll leave you with this thought. The next time you read a headline about a big company failing, pause for a second and remember this. It might not just be an ending. It could be the very beginning of an incredible comeback story.